start there because it makes sense. I've noticed an interesting trend since I've been looking at this issue, and the trend is that in just about every single scientific model that I have seen on warming and glacial melting and sea level rise, the models are always outpaced by reality. Consider ice loss for just a second here. In 2005, there was ice loss that basically was outpaced any of the 19 different scientific models that were in the IPCC climate modeling. And in this last fall, we lost a piece of the Arctic that was twice the size of the UK. And one of the Arctic specialists with the National Snow and Ice Data Center said this: "It's amazing. It's simply fallen off the cliff and we're still losing ice." He said, "If he asked me a couple of years ago when the Arctic would lose all of its ice, I would have said 2100, maybe 2070, but now I think 2030 is a reasonable estimate." Our top climate scientist, one of our top climate scientists, James Hansen, said that we have roughly 10 years to fundamentally change the way we use energy to avoid potentially catastrophic impacts of climate change. We need to stabilize CO2 and at all costs avoid a doubling of CO2 concentrations. Martin Luther King, speaking on a very different topic, said some years ago, "We're now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We're confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late." In fact, the overwhelming majority of the world's scientists are telling us that this generation is going to shoulder the responsibility of determining what the next generation of children and their children, and most likely their children, what kind of a future they'll inherit. So it's not going to be the next generation of savvy, technically minded, motivated kids. It's going to be this generation. Tomorrow is today. And that's a hell of a lot of responsibility for any one generation. But there is some good news. There's a growing awareness on the issue, obviously, and Al Gore and many other people have been part of that and have helped to do that. Many businesses and elected leaders are putting in place carbon reduction strategies. Investors are pouring money into the solutions today. Many U.S. states and almost 600 U.S. cities are really getting behind the solutions, and clearly the momentum's shifting. More and more individuals and groups are getting together like this. Folks, the nation is testimony to this shift, but is it enough? I would say it's not enough. This gathering notwithstanding, the pace of change is far below what's necessary. And we can be forgiven for being a little overwhelmed on this issue up to this point. Part of that is because climate change is so big. We're talking about a global issue. It's a remote issue. It's invisible gases affecting the invisible atmosphere over long time frames that are very hard to connect to our daily actions and the decisions we make. And it's been communicated to us in very dire and threatening terms. The sky is falling. To make matters worse, it's been a very partisan issue. And there's been a bogus debate on whether doing something meaningful about stopping global warming is going to be harmful to the U.S. economy, something that's been powerfully demonstrated to be false. But all of this together and many other things that have to do with how the issue's been communicated to us over time has affected how we are engaged in it. It has profoundly chilled public engagement. We hear a lot about tipping points these days. A tipping point is when a lot of small actions accumulate and come together to a point when suddenly very profound and rapid shifts can occur. And it's the same mechanism that you see with human health epidemics. Now, Malcolm Gladwell, the author of the book, The Tipping Point, says that he talks about social epidemics. He said what must underlie a successful epidemic is the bedrock belief that change is possible, that we can radically transform our behaviors and our beliefs in the face of the right kind of impetus. So with respect to global warming, what is the right kind of impetus? I would argue that we need at least several things at once. First, we need to believe. We need to believe that it's conceptually and technologically feasible for us to do this, right? That seems obvious enough. But it also thinks for individuals to want to play a real, meaningful role, in other words, to get beyond sort of the passive acceptance of or whatever things restrict our ability to act decisively, we need to believe that we can make a difference. We have to believe that the things we do will also add up, and we have to believe that they'll be of value to us. All of those things are important. So I'm going to take a moment, we're going to start talking a little bit about the technical side, okay?